What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, Zagnomics Gaming. I hope you are all having a wonderful weekend. And today I am going over another Destiny 2 video. I kind of wanted to talk about Drang. I know there's plenty of videos out there about this weapon. A lot of people have reviewed it way before me. So today's pretty much just a weapon review video. Other than I kind of wanted to go over something that a lot of people may have overlooked or they just don't care to use. There's actually something very unique with Drang. So first and foremost with Drang, it is a 300 round per minute sidearm. It is available inside of the new containment activity during this season, and it is craftable, which means you can have enhanced traits on this weapon. So it makes it very unique, and everybody knows that. That's nothing new. But one thing that I found out with this weapon is I've actually been using a full auto retrofit on this sidearm, and there's only really one reason why. I found out in testing. Now I have done both testing on mouse and keyboard as well as controller, which I do have two different types of controllers. I'm not sure if that plays a part in it. I have a SCUF controller which has modified triggers, but I also use the Xbox controller. It's just a regular Xbox controller that you could buy at any store. And with the full auto retrofit, I found that this mod actually turns the sidearm basically into a 2-burst weapon, as well as, you know, you still have the range, you still have all the benefits of a 300 round per minute. So it doesn't necessarily increase the time to kill, but it makes it so much more consistent, because all you have to do is tap or pull the trigger one time and you get 2 rounds off. So that makes it very unique. I did not test to see if other 300 round per minute sidearms do this as well, but with the Drang, it is very beneficial, I will say. Now, most people are using full auto retrofit on this weapon. According to LightGG, it's in 61.7% of the rolls that a lot of people are using, but I did not realize that if you just tap the trigger, you get a 2-round burst, and that makes it a little bit more consistent inside of PvP. So I think everybody should be running it. Everything else on here pretty much sucks. There's no reason to use targeting adjuster or counterbalance, and we'll talk more about counterbalance in a minute. But Icarus grip, I wouldn't use any of that stuff. Maybe backup mag, but full auto retrofit is very, very good on this sidearm. And it's not because you could shoot full auto. It's mainly because you could just shoot 2-round bursts. You could just tap, you get 2 rounds off. Tap, you get 2 rounds off. And what I've been doing inside of PvP actually is I'll aim around the neck area, tap, tap, and you get 2 shots. You'll always get a body and a crit. Granted, that's not the quickest way to get the TTK. You always want to hit crits, but it makes it a little bit more consistent that I've experienced anyways. Now, I've mainly been using Drang, period, just for PvE, because I just love it. I love the sound of it. I love the way it shoots, and I love the way it feels. So that's really what brought me to actually doing a review of this weapon, is once I put on full auto, I found that you could really just basically 2-burst this weapon, and you're basically turning 300 round sidearm into a 2-burst instead of just a single shot. So I thoroughly enjoy it. I hope you guys try it as well. And now we're gonna break off and get into the roles. I do have 2 separate roles, one for PvP and one for PvE. Now, before we begin, I just want to let you know that all the roles that we talk about here today will have enhanced traits. Also, if you're new to the channel or you're just passing by and you happen to watch my video, I normally go over multiple roles that fit a wide variety of gaming styles. That's just what I like to do. So you can skip to whichever role you prefer or skip along in the video as you please. Now, the first role we're going to go over is for PvE. And the first trait column, as far as barrel perks, we're going to go with Hammer Forged Rifling because it gives us more range. We're also going to go with Accurized Rounds. Now, instead of using Accurized Rounds, you could use Extended Mag, but it hurts that reload speed terribly. I mean, it drops it off by -20. So I don't really recommend using that. You already get 18 rounds magazine size anyways. Plus, I enjoy more range. If you use Hammer Forged Rifling with Accurized Rounds plus a range masterwork, you will have a 65 range stat. So that's really good, and that's really what I go for inside of PvE. So you'll see a trend with those 3 options pretty much throughout all the roles. even PvP as well. We may change the barrel perk, but we'll talk about that later. The first enhanced trait on this weapon, we will be using Disruption Break. Disruption Break works phenomenally well inside of all hard in-game activity, because if you break the shield with this weapon, it actually gives more damage to a kinetic weapon. So I like to use Wither Horde, which this works. I like to use Wither Horde paired with this weapon in a lot of activities, especially if you're on Titan, you're getting your sunspots, you're using Lordly Splendor. It just works very, very well. And I'm also using Incandescent. And Incandescent basically states defeating a target spreads a longer lasting scorch to those nearby, and it also creates an explosion. If you use the enhanced version of this trait, it spreads that scorch to a larger radius. So it is the #1 popular trait, especially for PvE, because you use Disruption Break for the harder ads, and then you use Incandescent for the, the flimsy people. All the little flimsy ads that are just easy to kill, 2 bursts, they're dead. Now for the origin trait with this weapon, which is, you can't change it, it just comes with the weapon. Final blows with this weapon while your super is full grant a bonus to strength and discipline for a moderate duration, which, I mean, I like using my super, but if I do have my super and I'm getting kills with this weapon, you get extra 20 discipline and 20 strength for 12 seconds. So that's nice. It's just an extra add-on. It's nothing crazy, or you're getting grenades back immediately. It's just a nice extra addition to your stats, especially if you don't have high discipline or strength. So it adds 20 off the bat once your super is charged. We're also going with a range masterwork. Range will probably be the biggest thing. Probably be the only masterwork that I use. Maybe handling. But other than that, I like range on this weapon. It works very well. Now for a particular build scenario with my Titan anyways, like I said, I've used this weapon on multiple classes. There's a lot of cool things that you could do with warlocks and hunters, but for the most part, I've only been playing on Titan here recently, and the main mods I'm taking advantage of is Bountiful Wells, which basically means if you create a well, you create 2 of them. It gives you an additional copy. I'm also using Elemental Ordnance, so if I get a grenade kill, I get an Elemental Well, which in theory, I would get 2 Elemental Wells because I'm using Bountiful Wells. Now, when you collect those wells, they actually give you more ability, energy, stuff like that. I'm also using Explosive Well Maker because if you didn't know, Wither Horde actually procs that, so you can get more wells. It's another way to get wells, basically. We're also using Font of Might. It gives me a damage increase for Drang, which works very well, but you can also use Font of Wisdom, which is if you pick up an Elemental Well, you get more super energy. Now I'm also using Melee Well Maker because I'm using the throwing hammer. So if I throw the hammer, I get Elemental Wells. It works really good together. I'm also using Reaping Well Maker, which basically states if I use my class ability, which I'm always using because I'm using Lordly Splendor. So I'll create a Void Elemental Well, but it'll still work as far as giving you ability energy. So no, it won't give you an extra damage bonus unless you're using a Void weapon, which in this case you can use a heavy Void weapon. My 2 weapons that I've currently been using with this build is Wither Horde and Drang. For your heavy slot, you can use whatever you like. For your exotic armor, I've been using Lordly Splendor. There's just so many. You really don't have to stick to one thing. Obviously, you wouldn't want to use Curse of the Falling Star on a solar subclass, stuff like that. So just make it make sense, basically. Now, you could also run Well of Tenacity if you have any more room, especially if you have Artifice Armor. You can actually use that. It'll actually keep you alive, reduces the damage you take from combatants for a short period of time, but like I said, I don't need it. Not with Lordly Splendor because it gives you restoration ×2, so that's just a waste of a slot. I'm also using Well of Ordnance. It only costs 1 energy. Picking up a solar elemental well grants you additional grenade energy. So you can see where the build is starting to come to life, because if I have Bountiful Wells, I'm always getting 2 wells. You pick up those 2 wells, you're always getting grenade energy and other ability energy. So it works very, very well together. Now, one quick note, I'm not using any armor mods that will create me orbs of power, so just keep that in mind. like I said, with the throwing hammer, that'll make me radiant. So that's really the whole purpose of me getting actual orbs, unless I'm trying to get supers or something like that. But I'm not running those mods on this build here. I'm also running 2 of the Armor of the Dying Star. That gives me void and solar damage resist. As far as the other artifact mods go, I am using solar fulmination, which means your ignitions do increase damage and increased radius. And I'm also running for my artifact mod, the last mod, I am using revitalizing blast, because that gives me ignition damage as soon as you stun a champion. Works very good with overload champions. I haven't really ran into too many barrier champions, but other than that, that's pretty much the build itself. So really, we're just trying to create elemental wells, and those elemental wells give us more ability energy, so we're constantly feeding back into our abilities. This build works really well with Drang, and then we're also using Witherhoard for that tick damage. It's just a really good build. It's easy to use, it's easy to navigate around. As far as the aspects go, you're going to have to use Soul Invictus for the sunspots, and you're also going to use Roaring Flames because that gives you extra damage. You're going to be using the throwing hammer. That way when we throw that hammer, we'll automatically be radiant. We're also using solar grenades because that's just what I wanted to use. Now, to become radiant with the throwing hammer, the only fragment that you really must absolutely have to use is Ember of Torches. As far as everything else, you can just pick and choose what you want. I have been using Ember of Solace because it increases that radiant and restoration effect. So other than that, you can pretty much use whatever you like to use. It's a very solid build. You always have a damage bonus. You always have elemental wells. It's just fun to play with. It's probably one of the top builds right now, in my personal opinion, just because Witherhoard's just cracked right now, and I expect a nerf to come eventually. But I definitely think you should try it out. Now for PvP, we are using Arrowhead Break. That will increase our recoil all the way to 100, making it completely vertical, and it eliminates that bounce intensity. So if you don't use Arrowhead Break or a counterbalance mod, you will have a bounce intensity where the weapon will veer off to the right a little bit. I don't like that, so I use Arrowhead Break, and it also gives me a little bump there in handling. For your magazine perk, you're going to want to use Accurized Rounds for that plus 10 in range. I'm also using Enhanced Moving Target, which gives me an increase to target acquisition and movement speed. I'm also using Enhanced Incandescent, and of course 2XS is always the origin trait, which, you know, inside PvP you're going to use your super more than likely as soon as you get it. And then we're also going to use the Range Masterwork to give us another 10 in range, so 55 range in total. And then of course I am using a full auto retrofit because, like I said at the beginning of the video, if you just do one tap on your mouse or you pull the trigger once on your controller, it will actually fire 2 rounds, so it makes it a little bit more consistent. And it does take some time getting used to if you decide to go that route and play that way, you know, use that same play style that I've been using. You know, you kind of have to time it correctly, but if you really get good at it, you can effectively always just hit crits. You just have to tap. Don't let it just keep firing because it's going to throw you off. And one of the big things with Drang is that muzzle flash is just so bright. If you're just firing completely full auto, you'll realize that you're missing a lot of your crits. So it does take some time to get used to. But once you master this technique with the full auto, I don't know if it's a glitch. It could be changed in the future. Maybe it's always done this and I've just never known, and all of you already know about it. But if you do master this, it will make the weapon far more consistent, and you will always just do really well with sidearms, especially in PvP. PvE is a little different. You don't really have to worry about this kind of stuff. But PvP, if you could just get that tap down, just get the timing just right, you will always end up outgunning your opponent in most cases, unless you get hit with a special weapon. And that's what makes Drang so good, is because it has the range. So you don't have to worry about getting rushed by some shotgun user or a fusion. You can safely eliminate your target at a distance without actually having to go up on them. And that's one of the drawbacks with the 491 RPM sidearms. You have to play a little bit more close quarters to get the kill, whereas with Drang you don't have to. You can play at the distance, and Drang also intrinsically works really well with Sturm. It gives you an overload damage shot for Sturm if you get kills with Drang. So I feel like Drang was mainly centered around PvP. So I would definitely give it a go. Try to use full auto and see how you like it inside of PvP. Just give it that tap method and you will do fine. As far as the mods go, you're going to want to use basic mods that everybody uses. Targeting mods, powerful friends, radiant light, stuff like that. All the unflinching mods. You don't want to get flinched to death. Maybe ashes to assets so you can get your grenade. But other than that, it's a good gun. You could pretty much just go in there and wreck everyone. Inside of PvP, I pretty much kept the same build going, other than obviously I changed the mods. I still use Lordly Splendor. I still use Wither Horde to cause even more chaos. And of course I use Drang. It was fun to play with. I want each and every one of you to go out there and craft your own Drang, and that way you can see what I'm talking about. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit longer than I normally post, especially since I kind of veered off into a build as well as going over 2 types of roles for PvE and PvP. But overall, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content in the future. We have Arc 3.0 to look forward to. You guys can also follow me at Zaynomics on IG. I will be posting these roles from LightGG on that site, as well as I will also post screenshots of it on this video, and I will also leave timestamps. That way you can actually go to the appropriate video that you really want to see, whether it be for PvP or PvE. I hope you all have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. Thank you all so much, and I will see you guys in the next video.